You're listening to Edge Radio TV. The views and opinions expressed in this program are that of the host or guests, and not the Edge Radio Network or its advertisers or affiliates.
Welcome, my Edgy Entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Jen Coleman-Ayers, your host, and I have none other than Oscar Hines with me today.
Well, hey, it is good to be here with you. I always love it when we get together.
I agree. Yes, it's always good energy. It's always fun. And we never know where it's going to take us.
That's true.
So
that's true. We could go over the river and through the woods, but there's going to be some very very substantive information.
Yes.
I am so jazzed about this topic today.
Yeah, I'm excited. As like the Edgy Entrepreneur, and then I also do business alchemy is really what I call it.
Yes.
And it's not that I do any one aspect of business. It really is kind of an alchemy of what I love it when they say unicorn. Like when they're the unicorn in their industry, guys, like then you're speaking my love language.
I love it.
But I truly believe that to be successful in business and to lead well, that you've got to know where you're going. So that you can have all of your tools, and then you can teach and you can get everybody on board and everybody's going in the same boat.
Yes.
Creating an amazing culture.
Yes.
Really.
Yes.
So I'm looking to kind of define. I've come up with 12 areas.
12's
I'm calling.
12's a really good number.
It is a good number.
Like it's a sacred number.
There's more than one reason that there's 12.
I love that. I love. Did you? Okay, so fun fact. Okay. So why are there 12 jurors?
Oh, I'm sure it goes back something biblical and sacred and all the way.
Well, it does, and the reason is that they used to, when they first started choosing a pool of for a jewelry, they would get each one of the horoscope signs. They would get a Gemini, a Sagittarius, a Taurus, because they wanted to have people that had different influences that would come together to be impartial.
Interesting. I love that, and that kind of goes into something we were talking off air about the people's energies, and that it's not necessarily male or female, that it's just sometime where you are energetically in that moment in the space that you're holding.
Yes.
So 12. So 12. I have 12. So I kind of wanted some input to see.
I love it. I can't wait to hear them. But I also have to say that I love the word alchemy. It's a wondrous word. It's a mythical word. It's right there with the unicorns.
If you understand it, then I'm speaking to you. And
Yes.
Then we need to talk. Yes. And alchemy is it's several different layers to it. Some people are like, oh, but it's turning, lead into gold, or it's a transmuting process of an element from one to another.
Right.
Yes, it is.
Right.
But there's so many layers. It also depends on what aspect you're looking from. Are you looking at the Chinese version of what alchemy is? Yeah. Are you looking at the Greek version of what alchemy is? Sure. Tell me a little bit your experience with the word. And
my favorite book as I was growing older was The Alchemist. And the Alchemist, I think it's Paulo Coelho. And it's based in biblical times, and it takes this young man through this incredible journey where he literally crosses the desert and he goes through all kinds of hell.
Yep.
And one of the things that was kind of interesting, and it's kind of like I'm not going to give it away, right? But I am giving it away because the book's existed for 57 years. No.
Yes.
Okay.
I've seen the movie.
What was it? You saw the movie. But what was cool about it was that there was a point in time where he was in this crystal shop. So he's in some foreign land on the other side of the desert, and he's like, I went through all this hell to be in this crystal shop. But he learned how to hone the fine aspects of crystal, how to accentuate all of that. Right. And then when he finally went through everything he went through to find his millions and to please his bride, his fortune lied where he was originally.
Right.
When he finally made it back home after all that hell, his fortune was right there all along.
Yep.
And it speaks to what you're saying is it relates to how internally we have instincts. We have certain things that attract us to other things. I just met a man downstairs. I've seen him before. I stopped. I talked to him. That's what my intuition said. He's getting ready to take an international trip, and we're talking now about bringing Edge Radio all across the continent.
Exactly.
How does that work? Well, it works
Because
when you're in touch with spirit.
Well, and when you have a vision too, when you have a vision. So for me in business, like you've got to have a vision in your personal life so on those mornings when you wake up and wonder who you are and you're like, what am I doing? I don't really feel it today.
Yes.
That you can remind yourself, like, here is my, here's my alchemy of life. Like, this is where I stand in all of these aspects. And then you just go forward.
Yes.
It's your personal book that you've written for how you want your playbook of life to be.
So how do you become, because here's where I think people struggle. How do you become clear on what that is? I understand that the how may not be there yet, like all the steps in between that you have to take. But there's people that are struggling with clarity. I mean, what do you do for that? What's the formula to remedy that?
That's really a lot of this conversation, is you've got to take time and sit down to unpack these areas of your life. If you don't know where you're going, then how do you know you're going to get there?
Exactly.
So that, I think this is a beautiful gift that I'm gifting to my, to my people, to my clients, of taking them on this journey to really dig in and get clarity on, what does your health and fitness look like? Yes. Like, what does it look like for you personally? What is that journey? Yeah. And there are questions that you ask. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's a big one for me. And people have been like, oh, you look great. I'm like, that's because I get up every morning. And, this morning I did several miles before I got here. I feel great.
Right.
But you got to make a commitment to it.
And that's where you're at. Like, it's not something like, oh, my gosh, I have to work out, 2 hours every single day. Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of it being the alchemy of life. You give yourself grace. If it's not your key focus in that moment, in that area of your life, if their business is more important than doing this and building this team, then, building your bod, maintain this.
That's right.
But let's put your energy here and your bandwidth here. So knowing that, then you can really create and craft a plan.
Yes. That makes perfect sense. So you just have to be clear on what that is.
You do. And it is. It's clarity. And those are conversations. And it's the willingness to sit down with somebody to unpack it. I mean, that's just the bottom line. You can journal, you can figure out, you can introspect, but ultimately it's that accountability with somebody that is going to walk you through the process, that's going to ask you those tough questions, and then they're going to ask again, and then they're going to ask again. So
the value of a good coach is also that they can objectively or provide you with a certain amount of objectivity.
Right.
Like, we can't always see what we're afraid of. One of the things that I love when I think about neuro-linguistic programming is that the human brain is designed to protect. That's its sole mission.
Yes.
So it can try to protect you against an emotional assault, and you might take a certain posture. It might try to protect you against a physical assault, because again, that's a factor, right?
Right.
But it's always trying to protect you. So since it's always trying to protect you, the question then becomes, what times is it inhibiting your progress, and how can you circumvent those moments and continue to stay on course?
And yeah, that's a great conversation to have on the flip side.
That's right. That's right.
So you guys, you're watching the Edgy Entrepreneur Show. I'm Jen Coleman-Ayers. I'm here with my guest, Oscar Hines. And we're just talking kind of the roadmap and alchemy of life. So stick around and we'll see you on the flip side. Welcome back, my Edgy Entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today on this Thursday, and my special guest, Oscar Hines.
Hey.
Enjoying the conversation, as always.
Yes, it's always good stuff with you.
Always. We were talking about the alchemy of life, and really, how do you define and clarify what that is for you? Because it's different for all of us. We all have a different filter and a different lens that we're seeing things through.
That's right. You mentioned 12 key areas. So what are those? What's the areas that you think of?
So I've kind of tweaked it down. And that's that, you know, there's a lot out there. How do you narrow it down to 12? So I have emotional life, character, spiritual, love, relationships, parenting, and not just parenting, and then your relationship with your parents.
Right.
So there's, you know, twofold depending on where you're at there. Social life. What do you want that to look like? We all know that we're influenced by our 5 closest people in our sphere of influence.
That's right.
Financial life. If you don't make a plan to fail. And then career, same thing. You know, if you don't make a plan, then you're planning to fail.
Yeah.
And then quality of life. Like, what is your quality of life? What is that for you?
Yes.
And that determines.
I love those.
All of that.
I love those. No, you're hitting on like all the key tenets.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was, well, and I love that you analyzed my handwriting on this too. So
well, they didn't see that part.
I know. I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, let me look.
Well, but it's good to identify that just as a sort of a side point. So, folks, those listening, right? One of the skill sets is just look up graphology. Graphology is handwriting analysis, and you're going to see certain traits. And I remember back when I was in corporate America, I would always have people. They bring in a resume, but I would always have them fill out a paper application. And everybody thought that was antiquated, and I was just an old guy that didn't know what the hell I was doing.
No, there's a method.
And I was like, no, there's method to this madness. Because if somebody's like, oh, I'm really a people person, and I love people, and their handwriting's leaning all the way to the left, they are introverts, and they are pretending to be people persons, but they're not.
Interesting.
and now it's like a meter. So the further left, the more introverted. Then it goes to the top. Then they become what we call an omnivert, which is somebody who can relate to people and needs to have their alone time. So they got a balance between those two, and that's a pretty balanced personality. And then you have the right-leaning, which is extroverts. You know, people that need to be around people, and that could become pathological if it's really, really extreme.
Right.
So anyway, so
all
that
those
is
little nuances.
Yeah.
When you know that, it's all powerful. I mean, like
is.
all of that comes together to be a powerful tool.
Absolutely. But going back to those central tenets that you mentioned, there are some key ones. So the first one, what was the first one that you?
Your emotional life.
The emotional.
Oh, actually, no. We talked about health and fitness.
Okay. So if the physical body is not at a certain place, then nothing else matters.
Nothing else matters. Yeah. Right. Because you can't, I mean, what does success look like? Well, success probably looks like I'm healthy and can get out of bed.
You could be a billionaire, but if you're lying there on a respirator and you're about to die, it doesn't matter that you're a billionaire.
It doesn't. And I truly believe so much of it starts with our gut health. Like this is where the protective measures start.
Yes.
You know, knowing what you're putting in, knowing what you're eating.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so interesting when you start digging into all of the knowledge. And food's been big for me for years, always has. But when you start connecting all of the dots to the different areas of your life, even,
that's right.
And how it's all gut health related and emotional.
Well, the gut is said to be the second or the primary immune system, where the primary immune system is, and really it is, because the virome is in here. So, for example, you know, people are all afraid of COVID. Well, the fact is, your body has a virome. That's a virus environment that learns all of the different pathogens that come in it. We've dealt with viruses since we've been placed on this planet, you know, and our body knows how to fight them. And if you start messing with that and telling, oh, fight this virus but not this virus, what you get is external strains that could be problematic.
Right.
So you know, all of this is very early, but I tell people, weaponize your body.
Yes.
Weaponize your body, and
I
you're
love
right.
that, weaponize, because that is what it is.
And here are the practical steps. Probiotics. Get on probiotics and start populating your gut. If you guys are out there and you're not taking probiotics, especially when you're past 30, 40, your body's not producing them like it was before. That's a major defense, because those are the good bacteria in your gut and digestive enzymes.
Yeah.
Because those enzymes are going to break down all the junk that's in our food, all the chemicals, all the byproducts, all the artificial everything that chemical companies are putting in the foods that pharmaceutical companies are profiting from.
Yes.
Ain't that some bullshit?
I'm like, I know we can keep going on that one, but no, I'm going to pull you out of that
pull me off that one,
because
so health
knowledge is
crucial.
Power.
And
knowledge is power.
Yes.
And this is another beautiful thing about having people in your life that direct you, because you know, you have all of that knowledge, and I I just need to ask you a question, and I know that it's coming from a good source.
Yes.
So I mean, I really, again, back to like the alchemy and how do you create this, and why you really do need somebody there to just kind of go through this process with, and it needs to be a conversation.
You know, I once heard Anthony Robbins say this. He said when you get a why, the why doesn't mean anything. It's like a three-legged stool until you put legs under it. Once you put the legs under it, like he was using a drastic example. He said, if you want to quit smoking, go to a lung cancer place and see the people dying of cancer.
Right.
And that scares the hell out of you. And then you're ready to stop smoking.
Right.
But before then, your why isn't strong enough.
Right.
And I think when it comes to things like food, people have to understand that their body is anything they put in their mouth, it's fueling the physical organism, and it could be a problem. So what's the next one? I don't want to, because I'm sorry.
Well, but all of
you get me on health and nutrition. We're gonna kill this. So okay.
Intellect. So same way. Know what's going in.
Yeah.
So your intellect, just like know what's going into your body to build that superpower. Know what's going into your brain.
So how are you defining intellect? What's your interpretation of intellect?
Just constantly be challenging yourself. I call it ABC, like always be challenging yourself.
Love it.
Like always be doing something that's out of your comfort zone. Be reading something. Knowledge is power, and watch what goes in. Like I'm not a news watcher.
Yeah.
I don't even I walk out of seminars even when I don't like the vibe or the language. I'm like, no, I'm out of here because I don't agree with that. So,
well, you know, I find this both sexy and sort of a life skill of sorts is curiosity. Like I think curiosity is something that if somebody can just stay curious their whole life about different things, about different topics, stop and examine that flower and notice that the flower has a geometric shape, and that geometric shape matches the same shape of the entire universe, and then tell me there's no God. Okay, you know, it's stuff like that, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And then how it all pieces together. So I mean, it gives you those building blocks of knowledge, not only like knowledge that's out there, but also how to learn and how to direct that knowledge. You know, I always tell people, like, take what you get, take what you hear, leave the rest, because then it's not meant for you at that time.
Right.
Come back to it.
That's right.
You'll hear it different when you're at a different level. That's right. For sure.
But I know you're going to talk about relationships, but how important is being with a smart person to you? Intellect.
It's probably why I'm not with anybody.
Because their men are a bunch of dummies. Okay.
No, I mean, it's I'm always on. Like my brain is either always working. Like I'm always inquisitive, and it's a lot. I mean, I'm always thinking. I'm always wanting to learn. Like you're saying, the flowers. Yeah. You know, I go and disappear into the forest, but I'm still looking at the beauty.
Yes, you can still see the forest through the trees.
Yes.
Oh, pun intended.
Damn.
Okay, what's the next one?
So emotional life.
Emotional
life, emotional health. I mean, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
Where's your brain and your heart connection?
Now see, that's a big one.
Yes.
So one of the things that I love, and for those out there who've not listened to this, go back and look at brain-heart coherence. They call it heart math, but look at brain-heart coherence. And there's this meditation that I tried, and it scared the bejeebers out of me. You know, it's a breathing in, and then moving that energy into the heart space, and then cycling it. And it's doing it over and over again, but visualizing it going from the heart chakra into the crown chakra back again, not all the way down to the base chakra. Right. But what starts to happen is it starts to bring out a very feeling part of who you are. Your empathy level starts to grow, so that as soon as you enter someone else's field, you're feeling them. You're feeling their pain, their anger, their passion, whatever. So you become more sensitive, and you got to be ready for that.
Right. And there's more science on that. So we'll go into that on the back end. So you guys, thank you so much for sticking around and hanging out with us on this journey of conversation through all of this alchemy, really, alchemy. So we will see you on the flip side. You're watching Jen Colmenares, the Edgy Entrepreneur on Edge Radio TV.
Edge Radio TV is holding auditions for new show hosts. Are you a subject matter expert, professional, influencer, book author, thought leader, or business owner with an educational or motivational platform? Then we want to meet you. Send a link of some of your work to edgeradio20@gmail.com and be sure to put audition in the subject line. Join the Edge Radio TV family. Edge TV, because truth still matters.
Aren't you tired of not getting what you want in bed?
Are you ready to spice things up behind those closed doors?
Woo! We're here for you every hump day at 7 p.m.
This is Sex on the Edge with Jen and Hen. I'm Jennifer Reeves.
And I'm Hendrix Scott, and we are professional licensed sex therapists.
So remember to watch us Wednesday at 7 p.m. on Edge Radio TV, just in time for sexy time.
Hey y'all, I'm Robin B.
And I'm Dr. Kiva.
And we just want to know
How you living?
Join us every Monday
At noon Central Standard Time.
here on Edge Radio TV. Take care.
When people stop talking to each other, society is on the edge. Let's bring them back. Edge Radio, because truth still matters.
Are you a small business owner concerned about the downturn in the economy? Top business leaders like Mattress Mac and Warren Buffett will tell you that now is the time to promote your business more than ever. People need your services. Your business needs an edge. Learn about special advertising packages for small businesses right here on Edge Radio. Find out more, give us a call at 281-744-0446. That's 281-744-0446. Edge, because truth still matters.
Welcome back, my Edgy Entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for joining us today. You're watching the Edgy Entrepreneur Show on Edge Radio TV. I'm Jen Colmenares, and this is my guest, Oscar
Hines in the house, having fun. This, we go into like some very deep stuff.
It's just, it's always going to be a cool conversation.
It is,
Yeah.
and then sometimes, folks, those conversations in between commercials can be really fascinating.
Yeah, that's when everybody gets involved too.
That's right, exactly. Because that was just some great input by one of our studio guests here. So anyway, continue.
Yes. Well, I think we were on emotional. We were talking
Emotions.
about
Yeah.
emotions and
Yes.
emotional health, and then we were talking heart coherence
Yes.
and heart coherence meditation. And it doesn't even have to be anything in depth.
So
5
if
minutes.
somebody talks to you that went through a really difficult childhood, really difficult challenges, maybe there's some emotional scarring. How do you proceed with that person? What is your general thought process?
One, why are we having this conversation?
Well, no.
No, I mean, really, honestly, like, why are we having this conversation? Like, how is it affecting you
Okay.
that it's important?
Yeah.
Like, how is it showing up in your world that it's relevant at this moment? So, I mean, for one, really, that's honestly because then, okay, how are we going to deal with it? Like, do we need to deal with it, or do you just need to get over it?
Yeah.
Or does it really need to be dealt with? Or, so, I mean, it depends on what it is and where it is. And that goes back to the alchemy and the
because
having.
I hate to say this, and maybe I'm probably going to be judged for saying it, but I guess part of it is that if I see somebody that is in a place where there's a lot of scarring, I may try to offer help and counsel, but I also make a conscious decision that I don't necessarily always want to integrate them into my life.
Right.
Because then I'm either going to continue to do that, or there might be some dysfunction that comes. Like if somebody starts going ape shit on me, that's not a good thing. No. Because I'm going to stop them from doing that.
Right.
So I guess I'm asking the question because of the emotional aspects. When we define some emotional dysfunction, what do you do in those cases when you meet people that you know just don't have it all together, or maybe they're still evolving or whatever?
Again, I mean, you've got your plan. Like, you know what your plan is, and you know what you want your life to look like. Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to get derailed by their situation or whatever that is, then you don't go down there. I mean, same with business. Like, you've got this emerging company and then nine different avenues that you can go down.
Right.
So how do you know what avenue you're going to go down? Well, you go back to what your core values are. You go back to your alchemy of life plan. Like, what is at your core, what direction? And when you're basing decisions based on where you want to be and what your plan is, then it's not really a conversation. You're like, okay, cool. You're in my life for a reason. Let's do what let's have this conversation or send you where you need to go. Right. You're able to just kind of not be attached to it or to the outcome.
For a reason or a season.
For a reason or a season, yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, that's good. And I like what you said about remembering your core values, because that's your due north. That's the compass that keeps pointing north, even in the midst of the torrent. So that's really great. What's the next one?
Yes. Character.
Big. How do you define it?
I think, I love this, and my parents can probably even tell you, my first car was a 73 Super Beetle, and in the car, on my rearview mirror, I had a sticky note, and it said, character is who you are when nobody else is watching.
I love that.
And that is absolutely what I have lived by since 16, character is who you are when nobody else is watching. Yeah. So what is your due north? Mm-hmm. How do you want to be? Like, what kind of person and what kind of boss, what kind of creator, what kind of parent, what kind of partner do you want to be? Yeah. And then build from there.
I love that, because it's reaffirming to me a little bit. So there's a young man that I'm never around. He's not related to me, but let me just say this. He's my kid's half brother. Okay, so he's not my child.
Right.
I see him from time to time, but he's
in your world.
He's periodically. But I could tell this kid's 16 years old, and I could tell that he needs to have some male energy. So the other day he was visiting my kids and stuff. So I invited him to walk the dog with me, a long walk, and I asked him this question. I said, let me ask you. Now remember, he's 16. He's trying to be cool. He's around me, right? And I'm a lot.
I didn't get invited to chaperone prom because I'm a lot.
Okay, that's right. So I asked him this question. I said, in a couple of years, you're going to fill out, because he's going to be very tall. His father is probably 6'2", 6'3". He's a handsome kid. But right now he's in that goofy half-baked stage that 16-year-olds are in. So I said, when you become a 6'2" strong man, you're a grown man, how will you comport yourself? And he goes, of course, I let him struggle with it for a second.
Absolutely, that's fine.
And then I said, so you don't understand what the word comport means. Then why aren't you asking me?
Yes.
because that's the first step to gaining anything.
Absolutely.
Asking those questions.
Yes.
So then I said, it's basically how will you interact with the people? How will you treat them? What is your character? How will your character show up on a consistent basis that defines the kind of man that you are?
Right.
Are you honorable? Are you underhanded? Are you honest? Are you dishonest? Those elements are what you decide right now, and you set that as a course in your life, and
Right.
you don't vary from it.
Right.
And so as I was saying these things to him, I could see he's formulating. So he's a smart kid.
Yeah.
And I thought, damn, I wish someone asked me that when I was 16.
Well, and you're going to laugh because I always tell people I was an ugly duckling.
Get out of town.
I was an ugly duckling.
Not you.
So like I had to learn how like personality and character and like that's why
I got to see an ugly duckling picture. I think I can't imagine you now.
I know, but so much of it is self-confidence.
It's
too.
confidence.
So much of it is self-confidence,
That's
and
what it is.
no, back then I didn't have any.
Yeah.
I didn't know who I was. And that's hard. I'm like, you're a little kid. You're thrown into this mix of like, okay, well, this is what your parents think. This is what school thinks. That's how that household lives. This is how you live.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot that goes into that and emotional intelligence and yes.
Wow.
All that whole mix there.
Yeah. Well, I like the subject of character. The final thing I told that young man is I said, I like to think of myself as a samurai with the sword right here. You will never know it's there until you fuck with me.
Right.
And then it's going to be game on.
Right.
Because from my perspective, I want everybody to just allow and be tolerant of each other. Like there's never a reason to impose anytime someone says I'm right and you're wrong and I'm right, then it's dogma. It's dogma. The only rule that should apply is, am I hurting you or are you hurting me?
Right.
Are you infringing on my life in such a way that like if somebody is like, I see people who hate homosexuals. I don't get it. If they're not being attacked and beat down by homosexuals, what's the problem?
Right.
Let them live. And if that's wrong because God says it's wrong, then God will sort it out.
Right.
No judgment's necessary there.
Right.
If we let go of all of that, we would solve 80-90% of the world's problems.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. For sure. And worry about what's under your roof.
That's right.
First, before you worry about what's behind your eyeballs and between your ears first.
Exactly. And what you feed that every day. Because I got to tell you that news is not always good to feed your brain.
No.
And the news is coming through your phone now. It's not like it was when we were kids.
Well, that's why we have Edge Radio here.
Yes.
So, because the truth still matters.
It does.
And on that note, we're going to give it to a commercial from our sponsors. So, thank you so much for watching the Edgy Entrepreneur Show. We'll be right back after this word from our sponsors.
We work our whole lives to support our families. With one accident or illness, it can all be gone in an instant. Now there's a smart, affordable way to protect your family. Go to findhealthbenefits.com and discover low-cost life insurance for as little as $2 per month. Add to that a tax-deferred annuity that can help you protect your assets and grow your money for retirement. Learn more. Go to findhealthbenefits.com or call 877-235-6094. A critical illness can strike without warning and wipe out your life savings. In fact, it's the #1 reason for bankruptcy. Find Health Benefits offers an affordable solution. Get up to $50,000 if you get cancer, stroke, or a heart attack, giving you the peace of mind to focus on getting better while the plan helps you to pay your bills and medical expenses. Learn more. Go to findhealthbenefits.com or call 877-235-6094. 66% of seniors spend more time shopping for cable TV than Medicare plans. Most say because it's just too confusing. Laws change every year. The wrong plan could cost you thousands and prevent you from seeing the doctors you want. Introducing FindHealthBenefits.com. Save time, save money, see specialists without referrals. Go to FindHealthBenefits.com or call 877-235-6094 for this informative brochure.
Society is on the edge. Let's bring them back. Edge Radio, because truth still matters.
Welcome back, my edgy entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for joining us today on Edge Radio TV. I'm Jen Coleman Ayers, your host, and this is my guest, Oscar Hines. And we're just kind of on a journey today through the alchemy of life and defining that and what that really means.
Yes.
Gone anywhere from meditation to emotional scarring to character.
Yes.
Yes.
And character was the one we ended on, and that one is huge.
Yes.
I think everybody needs to think about how they comport themselves, as I asked that young man.
Yes. Well, yes, because who you are matters, and you've got to know who you are when you're waking up. Because sometimes you got to remind yourself. Yes. I mean, in the mornings, there are days that I wake up and I'm like, where am I? What am I doing? Who am I? What did I say I was going to do? Where's my calendar? I have affirmations everywhere to remind me of it's the next right step.
But, it's also a process of self-belief. And I'm trying to recall who said it, but there's a quotation that goes, if you've convinced a man that he is inferior, you will not have to lead him to the back door. His very nature will require that of him. And so I think sometimes when people are told they're not good enough, and when their parents are giving them nonverbal signs that they're not good enough, and we sometimes think that in the name of improving our children, we might say some critical things, but that can create some indelible marks that show up in weird places.
Oh yes, I hear stuff from my girls all the time. I'm like, I didn't mean it like that.
Right.
I'm glad you're saying something.
Right.
I mean, I get an opportunity to have that conversation, but there are little things that you're kind of like, oh, that hurt. Why did that hurt?
Right. Yeah, because you don't know when the slings and arrows will slide through the bone and sinew and hit the heart. Yes. You don't know.
Yeah.
You could be saying something in jest. And I was a pretty sarcastic parent. Half the time I said stuff to amuse myself. Yeah. That may not be good. Because kids are sitting there going, did he just call me a...
Oh, yeah.
It was funny, but my kids one time said, you guys said schmucks. And they were like, a schmuck? What's a schmuck? And I said, and they didn't have Google back then. So I said, I won't tell you what a schmuck is until you get a lot older. Then I brought it up.
Why are you calling us
That's
that?
Right. Yeah, that's for those who know what that is. It's horrible. I'm not going to go there. Anyway, what's the next one?
Parenting's in there, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Just after I just said that, people are thinking, what a horrible parent.
Well, parenting's in there on what kind of parent you had, but then also what kind of parent do you want to be?
Yes.
Because, I've always stuck true. Like, I had a path. Like, I knew what I didn't like growing up, and so it was like, I had a plan and a vision for what kind of parent I wanted to be. And man, that took a lot off my plate, as far as having to run different places or live up to their expectations or their friends' expectations or my friends' expectations or the neighbors, knowing what kind of person and what kind of parent I wanted to be.
Yes, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that roadmap. I think, you know, when I was married at the time, and I think my wife and I had spent a year and a half before we got pregnant. So it was time for us to acclimate. But I don't know, you know, we kind of went back in afterwards after the kid was like born. So, okay, we got to do this, we got to do that. You know, so what you're saying is smart, especially for those younger people out there that plan to raise a family. It's great to do what you're saying.
Yes.
Plan it out.
Plan it out. Know what kind of parent, what kind of you want to be. And then spiritual.
So how do you define spirituality? I've got a definition, but I'm curious about yours.
You know, I don't know that I have a definition because I think it is uniquely defined. Our connection, for me, it's a feeling, and it's a connection to that feeling.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's exactly what.
But it's not like I can't tell you what that feeling is. You know, for me, it's the goosebumps, the eyes water. Yeah.
Don't you start.
Meditation, but even being empowered in a conversation, like even those moments.
Right.
So yeah, that feeling is a broad spectrum.
Yeah. Well, so in my definition, I think what I think about is my relationship with myself and my relationship with my creator or my higher self. What are those two relationships? That's how I define spirituality. Because there's some people that rely on religion to sort of dictate what their spirituality is.
Right.
I go to church, they tell me this is how God wants me to be, and that's how I am.
Right.
There's other people who say, well, I'm spiritual, so I don't go to a formal place of worship, but this is how I behave. These are the principles that I live by. But so I like to think it's a relationship with myself and with my creator, my higher self.
For sure. And then religion is interesting. You know, we did that talk on religiosity, and I was brought back into that conversation this past weekend. With a couple of pastors sitting at lunch, and the conversation is that their congregation is so ingrained in the sheep modem, like the sheep mentality, that they're having a hard time. Like they're saying connection and prayer, meditation, quiet time, but they're not hearing it. They're not feeling it. They're not following through on it. So it's an interesting personal journey to what is spirituality, because it's not religion. It's not going to church.
There's a massive migration away from churches. Catholicism, which was always the dominant religion of Christo-Judeo practices, have seen a mass exodus. I mean, a mass exodus. But even from traditional, non-denominational, all those churches, because people are now starting to realize there are controls that are in those institutions that are designed to prevent certain behaviors, but that's not necessarily beneficial to
right.
It's
kind of like cutting the leg off the ham to fit it in the pan. You don't know why you do it.
Why you do it? Why exactly? Why do you? Because you had because grandma had a really small oven.
That's why.
200 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, so we still do that. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So little things like that, and knowing where you're coming from, and that's another, knowing your alchemy of life and having that plan.
Yeah.
You know you're true to yourself, and then it's kind of a rinse and repeat. Yeah. You know, okay, so where am I at social life is another big one.
But before we move from that one on the social life, I just want to say one more thing about spirituality that I think everybody should think about. When we look at Jesus, and whether you believe him as a historical person, a prophet, or a metaphor, he went away to the forest. He went away to nature for 40 days and he meditated. When you look at Buddha, when you look at Muhammad, name prophets. Go ahead, just name one. Yeah. They've all had this journey, and many of them found it in asceticism or in isolationism. So there's a place in time where maybe spiritually you might need a guru, but sometimes you need to just sit still in the forest and hear yourself and sound yourself down into your own mind until you're at the core of what those values are. And then you can act with purpose and intention.
For sure.
So I think that spirituality is really important.
And that's so hard in the beginning. I mean, I know, I would even say 5 years ago, trying to kind of, I want to say deprogram, but, you know, turning off the media and walking away from that, kind of shutting that down and really being aware of what I was ingesting.
Yes.
Yeah, like it's hard to get quiet with yourself when you haven't spent any time with yourself.
Because the mind is a turbulent sea.
Yes.
But if you can stay away from media, and Deepak Chopra said 3 days, the experiment was go away, don't listen to radio, don't read books, don't do anything, just literally silent. Right. And the first day your brain's like this. The second day your brain's like this. And then the third day becomes still like a pond. And then he says, what happens when you take a pebble and you drop it into a pond? It begins to resonate outwards. The resonance of that water as it goes outwards, that's the pond is your intention, and the resonance is the universe responding to that intention until it reaches the shores where it materializes into reality.
Yeah.
And I tried that, and it's very, very powerful. So people, we gotta learn how to be still.
Yes.
We have to.
Yes.
Otherwise, we're always going to be in a state of confusion.
Yes.
So that's spirituality.
Well, and that's another nice thing about sitting down and getting clear on this. So there's a series of questions. You know, there's 4 questions to ask yourself in each area, and then really take the time to sit there and think about it. Be honest with yourself, you know, and then be accountable. Yeah. So yeah, accountability is huge. But take the time to dig in, write it out, and then revisit. Because when you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there?
That's right.
And when you don't know what that looks like even, then you can't work backwards from there. So it really is just about figuring out that sweet spot, you know, what is your purpose at this position? Where are you? What plates are you going to spin? You know, what do we need to keep in the air? What are you going to give yourself grace on? And, you know, where do we need to go? And where do we need to focus on and fuel that without burnout? Yeah. You know, because that's another thing meditation is so important for.
You're right. Because you have to recharge your battery.
You've got to recharge.
And there are people that they don't, and then they start to peter out. And that is not a good thing.
Well, then they go home and have a glass of wine or 2, and then they don't know why they're so miserable, or ow, I don't feel good, or man, I wish I had the energy to do this, or it's just forcing it like that.
But whenever you think of somebody who drinks every day, or who does drugs every day, or who eats excessively, all of that is to get that dopamine charge. Right. You know, it's to get that moment where we feel good and we can escape from our heads. And if we can find healthier habits to put in place of those things, we can start to navigate our lives a little bit differently. So that makes a difference. Yeah. And
healthier habits. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Knowing what that is and what that looks like for you.
In The Greatest Man, the greatest salesman in the world by Og Mandino, one of the 10 principles, you know that book, I'm sure.
I know. And he says, okay, I'm going to read it again. I read it when I was like 16. That was powerful.
Oh man.
It
never gets old. Every time you read it, you'll see something new. But he had one of the principles. He said, form good habits and become their slave.
Yes.
And then he goes on to say, if you're a slave to good habits, you are going to enrich yourself by your slavery. You are going to grow by your slavery. And I'm like, wow. Yeah. I never heard slavery used in a positive context like that.
In my world, it's discipline. Discipline equals happy.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's true.
So on that note, our time has come to an end.
So quickly it happens.
I know, always. It's always a fun journey with you. It really is.
Well,
and I appreciate your perspective on things.
Thank you. I enjoy it. No, this is always great conversations. And folks, I hope you all are enjoying it too. And I will say this, I don't do a lot of self-promotion, but for those who are interested, you can learn more about some of the concepts that I talk about in my on my website, OscarHines.com. So that's easy to remember.
Yes.
But we talk about communications, we talk about interactions, relationships, and all the things that are really important. And handwriting analysis. Yeah, there's literally, I have a workshop on handwriting analysis. analysis in my courses online. So
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. So folks, OscarHines.com, that's easy to remember. So thank you for having me. I've enjoyed this.
Yes, always. My edgy entrepreneurs, thank you so much for joining us here on Edge Radio TV. I'm your host, Jen Coleman-Ayers, every Thursday at 10 o'clock, the Edgy Entrepreneur on Edge Radio TV. Bye for now. Go out and be the change that this world needs.